Welcome to TSIB Talks, where we share information on construction insurance and its possible effect on your business. Enjoy our latest episode.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to TSIB Talks. Today we're going to be learning a little bit more about the industry and kind of focus on the Texas area. We are joined by Ian Berrigan and James Pfeiffer today, so if you two would like to take a moment and introduce yourselves, that would be great.
I'm Ian Berrigan. I am a producer and broker here at TSIB. Been with the company just over a year. Been in the industry coming up on 5 years now. I've started in tech insurance and in personal lines and then made the switch over to the commercial side.
My name's James Pfeiffer. I'm the Director of Wrap-Up Sales for TSIB. I've been in the industry since 2007, so I've been involved in wrap-ups the whole time.
Well, thank you guys for introducing yourselves. Now we can get things started. Ian, since I know you are from the Texas area, we're going to kind of focus on Texas a little bit during this podcast episode. So to kind of kick things off, what do you see as an objection that you typically get from prospects out there in Texas?
Prospects themselves, it's usually pricing. I mean, when it comes down to it, if there is an option available, the pricing is not very attractive just because how hard the market is. Like it's a very difficult situation that we're in across the country right now. The losses have skyrocketed. Payouts are massive compared to the past. Litigation is at an all-time high. And I think that's being seen across the board, not just with auto, but I'm sure with other lines of coverage as well.
So how do you overcome that objection and then still try to proceed with the prospect after that?
It just comes down to educating your clients and helping them understand the nature of the market, and that insurance isn't always the most fun thing to talk about. But I feel that if we position ourselves as the subject matter experts and hear out the prospect or the client and make sure that we're serving them appropriately, they're gonna be receptive to the information that we're presenting them as the broker or the middleman.
Are you seeing people take more, or I should say, are you seeing people take higher retentions with auto just to try to mitigate that cost issue?
Yes, I would say that's probably one of the first things that I would go to counter them being upset about the premium that's proposed. It's like, hey, we could increase that retention by another 5,000-10,000. And,
right.
Although it may be unfavorable at the time of a loss, you're coming out of pocket, double or triple what you would have in the past, maybe 5 years past. It's still a way to bring that burden of a high premium down a little bit.
Yeah, GLs definitely has been under pressure over the past, 6-7 years. It seems to be kind of leveling off a bit, but I didn't realize auto is still so hot. What do you think? What do you think is causing it?
I think it's just the amount of litigation. It's just everybody's suing everybody, and just your minor fender bender that maybe in the past was handled with a nice 5-minute verbal conversation or in a handshake and hey, we'll pay this, we'll get you back to where you were before the accident. It's now becoming, how much can we get from this? How can we benefit from this unfortunate circumstance? And it's back and forth battle.
So do you think that inflation plays a role in that too?
I would say yes. And, labor rates, lack of labor, COVID causing issues with supply chain, with materials for repairing vehicles, or I feel like that has a piece in the picture as well. There's like so many factors, and things have just changed so drastically in the last 3, 4, 5 years in the world in general.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure with how much things have changed in the past 4 or 5 years, I'm sure it's kind of drastically affecting this. But with that being said, I do want to move on a little bit here and kind of shift gears. So Ian, what is a non-renewal, and what has been your experience with that with your clients?
So to me as the broker, it means that either a prospect or a client of mine is being told by their incumbent insurance carrier that they are no longer going to offer coverage as of X date, whatever that date may be. It could be, usually it's at their renewal. So whether it's a 1-year period or 6 month, you're told about 90 days in advance that you're not going to be offered coverage from that company anymore. So you're going to have to go seek coverage elsewhere. When that happens, it's kind of a scary thing for, a business owner to see that come through and be like, hey, what did I do wrong? I haven't had any losses. I'm actually having the best year that I've had in my business. I'm earning more. My revenue projections are up. Safety measures are at an all-time high. Everything's good. We've done everything we were told to do. And yet it's still up to the carrier. No one is obligated to provide insurance to a business. And I think clients sometimes have that like misconception where they don't understand that an insurance carrier isn't obligated to provide coverage just because they request a quote or their broker requests a quote for them. And it's a challenge. In the recent years in the industry, I've definitely noticed that there are more non-renewals or more frequent non-renewals for a variety of reasons, but the market just gets hard in some times and soft in others. So it's one of those things as a broker, we just have to overcome the challenges and just communicate to our clients that it's not necessarily their fault. The non-renewal is out of both of our hands, and we can just do what we can to find a new market for them.
So, what are some of the reasons that a client would receive a non-renewal other than a high value of claims, right? I mean, that seems kind of obvious.
High volume of claims for sure. Recently, it would be, just the carriers exiting certain markets entirely. So, for instance, one of our clients or a handful of clients have been non-renewed for their commercial auto in California and in Texas. I'm sure a variety of other states are seeing the same thing. But yeah, it's strictly because they have realized that, the insurance company is essentially gambling on, are we going to profit from placing these policies or are we going to take losses? And obviously, if they want to be successful and remain relevant in the industry, they have to choose good risks that aren't going to cause, massive payouts and losses for the insurance carrier. So not only is it just like high frequency of claims that's going to result in getting non-renewed as a client, but sometimes it's completely out of your control, and the carriers are just making the best moves for their bankroll. They can't continue to offer coverage in a state or in an area to a certain clientele that's resulting in massive losses year after year. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, they're in business to be profitable, right? And so
Exactly.
even if your account is doing well, like maybe you haven't had a single claim ever in the last 25 years of doing business, that doesn't mean all of your peers are that good as well.
Right.
And so carriers all the time will decide, hey, we're not going to do this type of coverage anymore. Some are more consistent than others, but it's just as simple as Ian described it. They will exit markets that aren't profitable for them anymore. And so, yeah, you're right. Communication's key with our clients when that type of stuff happens, because they usually telegraph it pretty well. And if an account's going to get non-renewed, they certainly are, depending on what state you're in. There's certain hoops that they have to jump through before you can be non-renewed. But you're right, there's no obligation to continue providing coverage. So
And that does make it difficult for us being the broker between, managing the relationship of the client and the carrier. Being in between, we usually have to take the blame for the non-renewal or any unfortunate circumstance that they're placed in because of the carrier's decisions to exit markets or what have you. But the communication portion of that is the most important, because if we can effectively communicate what's going on in the market, educate the client so they're brought up to speed on why things are happening the way they are, usually that blame would just turn from you being the bad guy to being the one who's actually shedding light on the situation entirely. And that adds value for our clients.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's a perfect way to kind of end this episode. So I want to say thank you to both of you for coming out and doing this. I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure all of our listeners did too. I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode of TSIB Talks. If you like this content, be sure to follow for new episodes. Until next time.